So next I would like to welcome to the stage Alex Wood-Davies from the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Local Resilience Forum. She's leading a project into wider community resilience around emergencies, which does include flooding. So thank you. If you could put your hands together for Alex.
Oops. Okay, first things first, thank you very much for welcoming me and inviting me to talk to you today. There is something around knowing your audience and also knowing who you're following. So I don't know about you, I was thoroughly captivated with Mary's presentation, and I'm not entirely sure, I can't guarantee mine will be as exciting or as informative as that. So thank you to Mary. Developing local resilience capability. Lots of big words. What does it all mean? I'm going to introduce myself because I think I'm a one-person army with regard to local resilience for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Local Resilience Forum, which is another thing that I will explain to you what it is for those of you who don't know. But who am I? Just to give you a little bit of background, and I'll whiz through these. I'm a development and support coordinator for the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Local Resilience Forum. I've only been in post since March 2023, and I'm only on a 2-year fixed-term contract at the moment. That's important because, as you will see, I've been given a gift, which is somewhat of an elephant to eat, and I'm slowly trying to unpick it. This is more like a minimum 10-year project, just to put that into context. But we all need to start somewhere, and hopefully the small acorns that I'm currently planting will hopefully flourish at some time in the future. I come from a policing background. I had a 30-year policing career in 2 force areas. I retired as an inspector in January 2021 and clearly didn't run quick enough because they've brought me back into the constabulary. I'm hosted by Cambridgeshire Police, but I do work for the Local Resilience Forum, so I actually work for all the partner agencies. I'm not going to bore you with my career history, but I did have a small insight in the time that I was kicking around since 2021, working within Peterborough City Council, which was enlightening to see it from the other side, from a partner agency. So I know the question that you're all wanting to know, what on earth is the Local Resilience Forum? Now, I have spotted at least one of my partners within here. Have we got any other local resilience forums from other areas? I know the invite went out. Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland are in the house. I'm going to talk specifically to our aims, if you like, with regard to Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. But one thing I will assure you is that this is happening all over the country. So I sit on national groups, and every forum has got the same community resilience ambition, shall we say. But the Local Resilience Forum is a multi-agency group made up of emergency services, local authorities, military, who are in the house, public health organisations, the environment agencies, and others who would have a role to play should a disaster or major emergency occur. So it's a partnership. We don't have any kick as an entity ourselves, so we work on in collaboration with partners, and it's really putting plans in place, as it says there, putting plans in place as to what we're going to do if the worst day of your life actually occurs. And this is wider than flooding, and whilst you all have an interest in flooding, this is for any disaster or major emergency. So the forum produces emergency preparedness plans on how the agencies would respond to certain types of situations. These plans are regularly reviewed and tested through desktop and live exercises throughout the year. So I'm out, I think, next Tuesday at a simulated rail incident, major incident that we're having up in Peterborough. That will be all live play and what we call a tactical coordinating group, where the partners get together and essentially work out how to deal with the matter. So the forum also has a duty to produce community risk registers, which are public. and are readily available, which highlight risks that have the highest likelihood and potential to have a significant impact on the local communities, resulting in wide-scale disruption. Flooding, obviously, for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is very much there in terms of risk. And I'll speak a little bit later about an ambition I have in terms of incorporating the flood groups into rolling out some of the work that I'm doing, but I'll come to that shortly. I do tend to feel that I'm speaking somewhat to the converted within this room, because a lot of this is already very evident just from the mere fact that you are in the room. We talk about society being diverse and some already resilient. I think certainly if I've listened to Mary, and certainly if there are people within here who have had to deal with flooding, then there is a certain amount of resilience already there. And certainly the flood groups that are in existence are a prime example of how we develop community resilience. Some groups require additional support during disruptions. The aim of the work that I'm hoping to carry out is to enhance societal resilience by promoting self-help. Very much, again, I will keep going back to Mary's presentation, but you've got a lot of the examples there that Mary has spoken to you about how you can not only promote it within your own community, but wider to those who potentially could be at risk. And ultimately, this is not just with regard to flooding. I would like to widen your interests in terms of any readiness for any climate changes here. It may not be just flooding, it may be other climatic events. If we look at Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, there are other risks within the county. It might just be, we've seen gas explosions in residential areas nationally. In other areas, it might be an instance like that. Anything where all the emergency services are drawn to and will put them under significant stress, it's how you can promote within your own communities that sometimes referred to as a bit of a wartime spirit of pulling together and actually helping out and helping others, particularly those who are priority groups who can't necessarily help themselves. So the aim is to support priority groups through local resilience capability. So again, this is a term I shall repeat on a number of occasions. It's about preparing for disruptions, coordinating responses, supporting society and recovery. And certainly Mary also alluded to the challenges that she's observed in terms of recovering from these significant events. So the piece of work that I'm currently working on, and as I say, I've been in post for 6 months, and we've just managed to get a strategy past our strategic board, literally at the beginning of the month, is about operationalising societal resilience by hyper-local systems to help people and places to adapt and advance in a changing environment. Now, I mentioned this the other day, and they said, what on earth is hyper-local? Hyper-local is what it says on the tin, really. It can be as local as the local street, it might be the local town, a single postcode, but it's activities or preparedness or prevention work that can happen in advance of something happening. It might be lengthy power cuts, it may be, as I say, weather events, how we can better prepare and make those connections. And this is a lot also about people, the people who live in your surrounding area, but also the networks that you can promote in terms of knowing who to go to. So I've also referred to myself on occasion as a bit of a matchmaker or a facilitator. Call it a dating agency. I want to get people around the table from different interests, so communities of interest, and I want them to have access to the CPLRF or your local resilience forum wherever you are. So those emergency services who are going to be dealing with whatever it is, but I want to get you around the table with also your community and your voluntary sector. In recent government reports, and I don't want to go too political, But certainly more recently, the government reports have talked an awful lot about community resilience and a whole society approach to resilience. It's repeated. The National Risk Register has caused quite a significant shift in focus, and I'm getting lots of big nodding of heads, because for the first time there's a whole chapter in there around community resilience. This is quite clearly an agenda that is a hot topic currently, and is something that the government is very keen to try and encourage. Why is that? The cynic in me could say is that you look at your public services. Public services are stretched. There isn't necessarily the resource, the feet on the ground to be able to cover, be everything to every person. So this is around trying to tap into the vast resource that we have within our local communities. I'm a retired police officer. There's plenty of skills that I have that I can take into my community and assist in times of crisis without being still part of that profession. We've got retired doctors, we've got retired firefighters. The list is endless. You will all have talents, hidden talents, that you would be able to assist and help, even if it's just a listening ear or a helping hand. So I'm also here really to try and encourage the whole idea of volunteering and helping out. Okay. So, preparation. What does this really mean? So, in terms of preparation for a disruption, by encouraging, coordinating self-help and helping others, and including a focus on prevention, a lot of people, a lot more intelligent than I, have done empirical studies around the world around recovery from disaster or responding to disaster, withstanding a disaster. And the repeated theme is that if you are prepared, you stand an awful lot better chance of actually surviving it, for a start, but also an awful lot better chance of surviving it with some sort of future ahead of you. So mentally surviving it as well. And again, I shall keep coming back to Mary's presentation before. There's a lot of people there who Mary has shared their stories with, who have gone through the worst day of their lives and have survived it, but have not only survived it, they've actually prepared for the next time. And as Mary has quite clearly articulated, have fared a considerable better outcome after that lived experience that they'd already learned from. So preparation is something that is going to be what I will be trying to get into communities, drawing different groups together and start talking about those what ifs. What happens if? What happens if I don't have any power for 3 days, for 5 days, because there's no power, either locally, regionally, nationally? What happens? There's no power. No power means no water, no sewage management. It's not just about turning your lights on and off. There's no telecommunications. The list is endless. There's certainly no internet. And as a mother of teenage boys, that could be quite significantly challenging for me. But it's about having those conversations about what if. What if this happens? How can we as communities better prepare for that? Responding. So responding to a disruption by coordinated requests for help and offers of support from individuals, groups, organisations and networks. And recovering from a disruption by supporting society in the aftermath. Now, this is around, we do have quite in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, we do have a cohort of probably about 7 or 8 organisations, voluntary organisations, who will tip out and support our emergency services. We've got them with specialist equipment and in fact, CAMSAR, I think, are here. The Cambridge Search and Rescue are here. They're one of our trusted partners. They're a voluntary organisation who will come out and help us with specialist search and rescue expertise. We're not necessarily asking that of you. What we're asking, so you could almost look at this in a twofold approach. We are looking for community and voluntary responders. So if that is an organisation you're party to, then we would like to engage with you and look at whether we can bring you into our cohort of responders to work alongside or complement the work that our blue light responders and local authorities will be doing in response to a disruption and the recovery from that disruption. But the work that I'm probably more interested in, and really that's the reason I've been employed, is to try and encourage what you can do from a local level. So it's around joining some of the existing groups, flood groups, Neighbourhood Watch, local rugby club or sports clubs, Rotary. You can think of many different groups that are probably within your neighbourhood that we could do with getting around the table. I'd like to engage local businesses within that discussion as well, and how better we can prepare and respond and recover from a major disruption should it happen in your area. Now, what I will say is there's a very good chance that all of you will live your life without having to address this. I keep repeatedly saying I'm hopefully preparing for something that will never happen. Think of what kind of job that is. It can be quite a challenge at times. But it is about thinking about what could happen, keeping it in perspective, but just knowing and having the confidence if the worst did happen, you would have somewhere to go, some plan in order to address it. So we're looking at local resilience capability to create a local resilience capability that empowers individuals, groups, organisations and networks to contribute to building a resilient society. This is not me from the Local Resilience Forum parachuting into your neighbourhood and saying this is what you will do. That is not my business. As I've said already, this is about facilitating the conversation. This is about joining you with other people within your area or other groups and having those conversations. That might also be assisting you to look at need. In fact, my next slide talks about needs and support. But it might be looking at what your community needs and looking to see who can support that. And it might not necessarily be your local authority, which seems to be the one that we all go to, and quite frankly, they haven't got any money. This might be an investment of time as opposed to money. Resources come in many shapes and sizes. It may be the fact that you need a tractor to help pull equipment out, or whatever it is. It's around joining people together. Now, I would say that this slide was originally about where we sort of think we are within Cambridgeshire, because local resilience and community resilience is about communities using local resources and knowledge to help themselves during an emergency in a way that complements the local emergency services. I would say that a lot of Cambridgeshire is around getting to that point, because I think we do have some pockets of really good local community resilience, but it's all very siloed. There's not necessarily some groups talking to others. There's clearly superb examples of the flood groups really working and putting that into action. However, what we want to try and shift to, and certainly what the government has an aspiration for you to do, for this to be societal resilience. So this is around resilience of society as a whole rather than specific groups or individuals. If you lived in Germany, in every single house, I'm reliably informed, have something like a 63-page document on how to prepare for an emergency. Now, you might say that you wouldn't expect anything else from the Germans, certainly if you drive a German car. They know how to do resilience and they know how to do preparedness. There's other countries. Finland's another country that has got very good reputation. Canada another. And again, some of the reasons for this is because they've faced significant challenges in terms of their living environments. However, so this isn't something that's being done for any ulterior motive. This is around trying to catch up of where we probably should be in terms of preparedness and prevention for emergencies compared to every other first world country. So just a few principles here, just of the general work, where we would look to co-produce local resilience capability with society, aligning with risks and available resources. We would look to support vulnerable priority groups and work with partners to understanding their changing needs, but with simple steps. I'm not going to be able to roll this out to the whole of Peterborough and Cambridgeshire all at the same time. As I've already alluded to, if you can imagine, it is that elephant, and this is going to probably take at least 10 years to even start to have some sort of effect. But we will be looking at smaller groups, smaller geographical locations, and see if we can make a difference, and seeing what those challenges are. Just a little bit of clarification. Individuals, this is around people at home, families, work, travellers. Groups, so communities of type or interest or of place. Organisations, voluntary and business sector, and networks, collaborating, civil society partners, business associations and faith networks. So it's all about those simple steps of starting small and trying to roll this out. This was my needs and support slide. There will be assessments made. So the idea is, the general concept is that we choose certain groups within a geographical area, and as I've alluded to, we're currently looking at potentially starting with those flood groups within Cambridgeshire, mainly because you're halfway there already, but trying to widen that interest, not just from flooding, but actually looking at other preparedness that you could do in terms of your community. But we would look at a needs and support angle as well. So what needs do priority groups have? What needs can they satisfy themselves? Who else can help them? Where does the LRF partners need to step in? So it's really about that whole needs assessment of where are you at in terms of your communities. Certainly the flood group areas, you'll probably have a very good idea of these questions already. Support. What contribution can society make to local resilience capability to support those needs? What do they need to make that contribution? How does the contribution be integrated into the LRF? This is also about giving people a seat at the table and part of the discussion. So I'm currently, we'll come on to the 8 steps. I'm currently setting up a working group, and we are also trying to do this, just to reassure you, with a bureaucracy light touch, because the one thing that the LRF like to do, and again I shall probably get a smile from my partners within the room, is that we do like a bit of bureaucracy. We do like a bit of a committee. We do like to have a bit of a discussion. We'd like to write lots and lots of plans, but we also recognise that as volunteers and as community groups, you give your precious time in order to deliver action. So what we will do when we build these, the resilience capability, we will look to try and make it as bureaucracy light as possible. I'm quite keen, and I do know the flood groups, and I don't want to speak contrary to Hilary and the flood groups around your flood plans. They are very important. So I'm not taking away any impetus in order for you to complete your flood plans, and I know there's a workshop this afternoon about it. But in my world we talk about community plans, which is very similar to a flood plan, but I'm very conscious that a lot of that documentation, if we're talking around communities as opposed to your own personal flood plan, for instance, you can run into issues around holding data, and if I don't necessarily want you knowing all the priority groups or the people who are vulnerable within your area and writing those details down, because that sort of information can be quite useful to people if suddenly your personal laptop's nicked or something like that. So we do have that in mind, and we also want to work with communities in order for you to steer the ship. So what works for you? Because each community is going to be different. Some of you might say, actually, no, I'm quite pleased that my village is pretty well connected. We know what we're doing, and actually, whilst our community of interest is flooding, you could throw anything at us and I think we'd be okay. That might be it, and we walk away. However, other areas, and again, you might be within a flood group within an area who haven't been in contact with other groups within your area. You don't know who the local Rotary members are, or the local sports clubs, even scouting. You know, certainly scout groups can provide an awful lot of free resource to you to help you out. And it's around that transferable volunteering that we're quite interested to try and promote. So these are the 8 steps that we're promoting as part of our strategy. This is all work that has come from the National Consortium of Societal Resilience. Very grand name, but it's a fabulous group of people that have come nationally together. It's all the LRF almost all the LRF partners are involved, with the University of Manchester, who have a great deal of expertise in terms of disaster management and humanitarian work internationally. So we've had access to some very intelligent professors and academics who have come up with an 8-step plan, which we've decided, well, actually, if you've done all this research, we're going to take hold of it and we're going to promote it as well. And this is something I'm currently using, and I'm not going to go through it in its entirety, but it's an 8-step plan in order to set up our working group initially. So this is all the partners and our CVSs, so Council for Volunteer Services. So you've got CAMS CVS, you've got Hunts Forum, and you've got Peterborough CVS are all on board with this. CAMS Acre I've also spoken to, but I'm hoping to do more work with as well. So your larger voluntary representatives will also get a seat at the table, as well as some of the big charities like British Red Cross. And we're working through a list of membership. And that group will decide a lot of the decisions in terms of where this work goes. So again, I shall be going to that group as chair, and I will be, likelihood is I'll be proposing that our initial pilot will be to run through this, is to use the flood groups in order to look at this work and see whether we can widen it, not just from flooding, but for other preparedness and prevention in terms of major incidents. And the only part of this that I really want to highlight is the first step, because the first step is probably the most challenging. It is around aligning the right people, seeing who needs to be around the table, seeing of those who are those activists within the community who have the widest reach, who know the most. And I would expect a lot of you in here are probably the right people to be around that table if we come to your area, because you're here. So you've already got that investment, that personal investment to the cause. So the plan will be that in order to operationalise this idea, we'll use the 8 steps to form a working group, which is what we're doing at the moment. And my trusted partners in the room are likely to be getting an email from me in order to get those statutory partners in the room together with the voluntary and community sector. We'll consider that pilot and the proposal that we look at the flood groups initially actually came from Fire, my colleagues in Fire. And I will quite happily champion that cause if there's interest. And again, this is why I'm hoping to pitch to you here. We'll consider a pilot group to test the operationalising of the ambition using the 8 steps. The working group will also have other work to do because again, all that bureaucracy that I said that we're going to try and save you from, we still have to do in order to look at the resilience standards that the government set for us, for instance. That's quite a big piece of work that we need to make sure as partners we're addressing. And then we'll gradually use the 8 steps to roll out the ambition to those other priority groups. And when I'm talking priority groups, they're groups that may need that additional help, that may not have that personal resilience that quite clearly is evident within this room and this community, those groups may be requiring additional help or support. So the working group will look at those bids, if you like, in terms of where we're going to put this work first, and then we'll parachute in and hopefully provide you with some support. Now, that's essentially the end of my presentation, and I'm also 5 minutes early, which is quite nice. There were 2 or 3 things I just wanted to leave you with. I think the first one was the fact that I'm asking for investment, but not necessarily monetary investment. I come from a background of public service. I have run a number of projects and pieces of work that I have not really had a budget for. This is around investment of time and interest, which I think is far more valuable than anything else, and long-lasting. We'd like to try and create something that is legacy-making in terms of your communities. So we want to try and shift that community resilience towards societal resilience, that we embed this sort of mentality within communities so that people can stand up and actually look after themselves and others whilst your blue light services are over here and your local authorities over here, trying to deal with whatever it is. So that's what the biggest ask is. The second thing I would really like you to do is I'd like you to spread the word. So I'd like this to be talked about. Float it around your local groups. What do we think? And give me your ideas as to how it might work within your areas. Talk about the what ifs. What if there is that particular emergency in that location? Power is always a good one to talk about because that just seems to permeate into everything. But whether it's a weather event or whether it is a flood, what if? So do those what if exercises. And how resilient are you? And then probably the final word I'd like to say is that I've put my email address up on there. I don't have any cards, so if you catch me at lunchtime, I might have to just scribble my details down. But I'd really like you to get in touch, because I am, as I started off by saying, a one-person army. It is me trying to drive this. And whilst I will be doing that matchmaking and facilitating, it's also your ideas that I'd really like. And quite clearly within your community, as Mary has demonstrated, there's an awful lot of innovation out there. And it's around drawing that. So I'd really like you to get in touch if you've got any good ideas or you would like further involvement in this. But otherwise, I'm hoping that if the working group agree, we will be in touch, or I will be in touch, probably in the next 2 or 3 months, talking around trying to look at your specific flood group with regard to widening your interest just slightly further and connecting you with other groups within your communities to look at the whole community resilience concept. But thank you very much. I think my time is up.